When it comes to creating fantasy worlds, world building is undoubtedly a very important aspect. The world that you attempt to create must feel authentic. It must feel believable. It must have a certain coherent set of rules, which each story that takes place in that world has to follow, to a certain degree at least. These are some basic rules of creating fantasy stories. Quite unexpectedly, the show that worked pretty well with its world building was My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which was created by Lauren Faust and released in 2010. World building is among those things that made the show truly great. Equestria in the show is a truly big and vibrant place, full of interesting culture, cultural events and traditions that grew over the course of the show. That's 9 seasons and over 200 episodes. There are so many places in Equestria, big cities, smaller towns, other interesting locations, and they all have something unique to offer. For example, Manhattan is basically a pony version of New York City. Manhattan is a very big megapolis, a center of culture, fashion, unique traditions, busy lifestyle, even traffic. Canterlot, on the other hand, is like a modernized version of an ancient city. Ancient stone castles and streets are adorned by modern restaurants and shops. You really feel its grandiosity. Appaloosa is a typical Wild West styled small American town with its saloons and cowboy culture. And I didn't even mention places that were not inspired by the US or Europe. Somnambula is a city in the southern part of Equestria that's inspired by ancient Egypt and its myths. The world building in the show is not perfect. Nobody knows exactly where the borders are. Is Crystal Empire even a part of Equestria? But it had been very consistent for 9 years, and each season was certainly adding something to the map of Equestria, just like a movie which was released in theaters in 2017, that added many places such as Mount Eris or Clutch Town. And comic books did their fair share of world building, by mentioning or visiting places that aren't mentioned in the main show. As a result, we get a pretty prolific picture of the world where the show takes place, where the characters live. That's My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Or G4 if we talk broader and also include the movie and special episode called Rainbow Road Trip, as well as many comic books and just books. But what about the newest generation? Friendship is Magic came to a logical end in 2019. Hasbro immediately started working on G5, which premiered in September 2021, almost 2 years after the previous generation ended. Unlike G4, it started with a movie called My Little Pony A New Generation. And it takes place in Equestria of G4, but thousands of years later. The movie has only 3 locations. These are Maritime Bay, where Earth ponies live, Zephyr Heights is the city of Pegasi, and Bridalwood a forest community that became home for unicorns. And that's it. 3 pony tribes live isolated from each other, don't even have magic. But they have modern technology, they got internet, mobile connection, social media. Not sure about GPS though, they probably have it too. We don't know if there is anyone living outside of these 3 spots on the map. The movie was just meant to be an introduction. The setting was introduced, the characters were introduced too. After Sunny Star Scout brought ponies back together and magic therefore returned, the movie leaves viewers with many questions such as, what actually happened to Equestria? How pony tribes got so separated? Why all the magic disappeared from the world? Well, the show Make Your Mark was supposed to give us answers. Did it though? That's the question. After 14 hours of content, it is absolutely safe to say that Make Your Mark failed world building aspect of the storytelling. Because after so many episodes, we still have the same 3 locations. Plus Opulence Castle, which hardly counts since it's just one huge tower which nobody surprisingly even knows about. The show could be about exploring Equestria. Sunny Star Scout became an alicorn at the end of the movie. It is only natural that she would want to explore Equestria, find answers for questions that bother her and the viewers. Sunny and her friends could embark on a journey, visiting different places, maybe ruins of familiar places like Manhattan, That would have been very interesting without a doubt. However, most of the show just takes place in Maritime Bay. Even characters who are not from the town, Zip, Peep, Easy, move there for some reason. 14 hours of content and Equestria is still mostly black spots outside of 3 main locations. All the answers just absolutely conveniently flow into Sunny's hooves. She doesn't even need to leave home. First, the main 5 find a recorded message by Twilight Sparkle. Then Misty brings a chunk of lore in the episode where she and the other ponies have a slumber party at Sunny's place. Make Your Mark decided to become more of a slice of life type of show, with only a vague overarching plot. And it's pretty hard to tell what the overarching plot even is. The first 3 seasons of Friendship is Magic were carefully planned by Lauren Faust. Everything from the first scene was building up to a big moment, Twilight becoming an Alicorn princess by learning the final lesson prepared for her by Celestia. Make Your Mark, on the other hand, feels directionless. It is not a project by one passionate creator, it truly feels like a corporate product. The writers aren't even sure how many more seasons or chapters, as networks calls them, they're gonna get. Will Make Your Mark just come to an end after chapter 6, which is set to be released in November 2023, or will it continue into 2024? Right now it's very hard to tell. The story just isn't really aware of where it wants to be directed. Returning to world building, one thing that absolutely ruins the immersion, modern technology. As I already mentioned, internet, social media, mobile connection. It is impossible to believe that such advanced ponies didn't yet explore the world. They had to send at least a satellite to space in order to have internet. They had to see their world from above. And yet they lived in ignorance and extreme form of isolation for so many years, like some indigenous tribes in Amazonia or Sentinel Island. A new generation started this, but the movie had one excuse. It was trying to tell a story. It was trying to be a political satire criticizing chauvinism, xenophobia, racism and ignorance in general. Pony tribes being literally isolated from each other is just a hyperbolic metaphor to talk about delight and tribalism. And also don't forget that movie was being made during the first months of the COVID-19 pandemic, where people were physically isolated from each other due to lockdowns. Make Your Mark doesn't have this excuse. It's just poor storytelling. The writers who don't care or don't fully understand if they should even care. Make Your Mark threw the ideas of the movie out of the window and didn't bring anything new. Ponies were separated for so long, but in Make Your Mark most of them are absolutely fine living side by side with each other. Except for some ponies like Posey. Ultimately, G5 doesn't really make much sense right now. We don't even have a sufficient map of Equestria. What we have just isn't it. It's just a strange sliver. The world building is extremely poor and the show doesn't seem to care about it. The smallest details don't make sense. How far is Opalyn's tower from Maritime Bay? Should be pretty far off since the character used Zip's flying machine to get there, and they didn't even know the tower existed before the finale of chapter 4. But Misty seemed to be going back and forth from the tower to Maritime almost on a daily basis. All in all, Make Your Mark is a very strange show. It's pretty interesting to see whether the rest of the show will bother to explain stuff that I addressed in this video, or will world building remain a black hole. I guess we'll see that sooner rather than later.